It's March. It's March 2020. Okay, Roman, we're here. Ooh, I'll cut
Let's
that.
do it once again. Just
Okay. It's March 2023, and we're talking about the PHP news of February. I'm Brent.
And I'm Roman. And we're making it a little bit later than usual because Brent has third baby.
I've gotten a baby. Yeah. It's been great. It's been exhausting as well. But I took a little bit of a break, and I'm still taking it a little bit slow. But I'm happy to be here and to talk about the PHP news of the last month because some interesting things happened, Roman.
Exactly. Yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing is our usual releases. Actually, by the time we're recording this, there are already next minor releases of all the actual branches, like the branches that are currently supported. But and you should be updating, of course, because it's our security releases and they have fixes for some minor vulnerabilities. But what's important to say is that if you're still running on PHP 7.4, you can still get these fixes. It's not officially supported anymore. It reached its end of life according to PHP Storm release cycle. So every PHP version gets actively supported for 3 years, I think, and then 1 more year of a security support. But some distributions and some maintainers, they backport fixes to earlier versions. And so Remy, if you don't know this guy, he maintains a repository for Linux distributions. So he backports some fixes to 7.4. He adds this additional suffix to the version, which means that actually the last version of PHP 7.4 is 3.3. 7.4.33, but he adds this suffix. So if you can still get these fixes, but you should consider upgrading as soon as possible.
Yeah. So is Remy considering continue doing this, or what's the plan here? Do you know that?
So what he says is he's doing it voluntarily. So he's doing it as long as he wants, basically. So there is no guarantee that he will release any next version. So just be sure that you plan your upgrade.
Yeah.
We actually have a lot of releases in this edition. Yeah. So let's talk about Laravel 10. It has 2 new components. One is Pennant. It's basically a package or a component for feature flags.
Do you know what a pennant is, by the way?
The translation? No, I don't. What?
Yeah, it's like a kind of flag thing, which makes sense because it's a package for managing feature flags. But I had no clue what it was. I had to look it up.
Oh, that makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It says actually that it's simple, but it's not that simple. Like it has a lot of features in it. If you check the documentation. Yeah, so it has this facade feature and it has a bunch of methods. So you can basically name features and then activate them based on user or some other context. So it's really useful if you want to roll out some features gradually. For example, you want to first show features to like 10% of your users and then to the rest of them. Or maybe if you want to just A/B test something. The process facade, I think it's just a wrapper around Symfony component.
Yeah, I think so.
So Symfony component, it's Symfony process component. It does everything for you. You can imagine like if you need to run any external program or command in CLI mode, this Symfony process has got you covered. Like you don't need to invent anything, just go and use it. And this facade for Laravel is just a cool way to maybe simplify the API.
Yeah, it simplifies it, as with many things Laravel does when it wraps Symfony components. But I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
It helps cover like the 90% use case. And you can always just fall back to the raw Symfony component if you want to.
Are you aware of this drama with the return types?
Yeah, I definitely think a controller should return a response, and whatever you want to return, it should implement a response interface. That's my opinion here. But hey, it's Laravel, so things might be a bit different than my opinion, but it's okay. I think it was funny how it blew up, basically based on one tweet. I don't think it was that big of an issue actually, and I think it's I don't know. I'm kind of sad that Taylor decided to remove return types on controller stubs, but because it was like a big thing. Oh yeah, we're adding return types everywhere in Laravel 10, and now some people didn't like it, and now we're reverting it back. And yeah.
But I think it brings us back to this discussion of PC breaks, changes, and introduction of them in general. So just imagine that what happened. So they introduced these return types, and suddenly the people who upgraded to Laravel 10, their code stopped working for some reason because they were returning not response, but I think.
I don't think code stopped working because it was just changing controller stubs. So it only happened when you generated a new file, and if you decided to return something that didn't implement the right return type, then you would get an error and you had to change the return type. But even if it broke, and this is a major version, it's allowed in a major version to have some breaking changes, right? You wanted to say something about breaking changes. You wanted to make a point there. Go ahead.
I really don't like breaking changes.
Okay.
So, I mean, I get it. Maybe you should start with some older version if you don't want to upgrade. But if you want still to upgrade the framework, maybe you don't want to change everything. It's a little bit frustrating. But I guess there should be a balance, because you cannot keep the backwards compatibility forever. For example, I think WordPress tries to do that. Like, it allows you to keep a huge user base, but also a huge maybe user base that is not up to date, that uses old version of PHP of your tools, and then introducing any change is a nightmare.
Yeah, from my point of view, I always found it kind of strange that Laravel controller stubs that they didn't use return types. But I also found it strange that it took Laravel that long to add proper types instead of doc blocks. So when I'm writing code, I just want types everywhere because they are hints and they show clarity of what's going to happen. You know, it's basically, it's a shortcut for me in understanding what my code does or what someone else's code does. So I really didn't mind this change, even if it broke some things. You just automate your upgrade process and you don't have to be bothered by it. It's a return type. It's easily fixed with stuff like Rector or Laravel Shift, which does these kinds of things for you. So I didn't really mind it, so I'm sad to see it go. But we're in clear disagreement here, and that's fine. I get your point, but from at least it wouldn't be as big an issue as people make it out to be. So,
but maybe, I mean, I think they already have they added types almost everywhere. So maybe in the next version they will bring it back. I mean, response.
Or maybe add a union type, or I don't know. But for me, it's about clarity of what code does in the first place. So if I'm new to Laravel and I'm creating a new controller, I really like it that controller method tells me what I should return here, and that I don't have to go look up the documentation to read about it.
Okay, so let's move to the next release.
Yeah.
And it's PHPUnit 10. So as far as I know, I talked to Sebastian about this release, and he spent a lot of time preparing it. But most of the changes they are in the under the hood. So mostly it's the whole new event system. Yeah. So if you're developing an extension for PHPUnit, then this will affect you a lot, but also in a good way. So this new event system, it's more useful.
Can I just say, I just read it there. He mentioned PHPUnit development began 23 years ago. I think that's just what a milestone if you manage to create software that's still used 23 years. I was 5 years old when PHPUnit began. You know, that's
insane.
This is in terms of software development, this is a huge amount of time. So yeah, I'm really impressed by that. Sebastian, you're doing great work if you're seeing this.
By the way, when PHP turned 25, we prepared this timeline for history.
Yeah.
And you can scroll all the way back to the first release of PHPUnit. Let's find it. So this is the very beginning, and PHPUnit. Initial commit of PHPUnit. We can even go and check it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is it. Like, this was PHPUnit, the first commit.
Wow.
Yeah, so one other thing is that starting from PHPUnit 10, the guys, Sebastian and the team, they introduced attributes. So now,
great.
Anything that you were using with the PHP doc blocks, you can now use with attributes. And to me, it's really huge because, I really like attributes. I would love to all PHP doc blocks go away and be replaced with attributes. And I think this is another step in this direction. Also, there are some breaking changes or removals. For example,
How dare he with a major version, a breaking change? No!
Yeah. So he removed a retry option.
He removed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a repeat option. But I saw people complaining about repeat because they and I asked why would you use repeat? Like, why would you run tests a few times with this?
I think I remember having used it once or twice, and it was more in a profiling setting where I wanted to monitor performance of something and just have the same test run several couple of times. But it was always in like singular occasions. It wasn't something that I pushed to GitHub and it ran in CI every time. It was more like a debugging tool. So I don't mind it being removed, but I don't mind breaking changes anyway. So
yeah, this is exactly what people answered on Twitter. Like, they're using it to benchmark. But I think if you're benchmarking, you shouldn't be relying on this. You should rely on benchmarking part. So you should do this repeating part in your benchmark.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're using these repeat to benchmark, for example, a test script or something, that repeat also introduces some kind of overhead. So it's better to keep the thing you're benchmarking as clean as possible. Let's go to the next one. Yes.
Yeah. So there is this PSR standards, and there are a few standards. Actually, 2 standards for coding style. There used to be. But language evolves all the time. Like, in every PHP version, there is some syntax addition usually. And for this syntax addition, you want to have a standard, on style standard, how to use it, how to basically where put spaces and new lines and stuff like that. Maybe a couple of years ago, PSR team, actually PHP Fig team, they accepted this new coding style process called PER, which is PHP Evolving Recommendation, which means that this standard, it will be versioned with semantic version scheme, and it will be changed always. Like, it will be ongoing changeable standard. So for the first version of this PER, they used just PSR 12, but then they upgraded it and to add all the new features like short closures and all the other new additions to the syntax.
So, I don't want to be too negative here, because I really appreciate it when the community comes together and tries to solve a problem. And we really need to give credit where credit is due, that PHP Fig, they really made a huge impact on the PHP community. That's a given, and they deserve all the credit there. However, with PER here, it took 2 years to have a new draft of the next version, or is it released now?
No, not yet, I think.
It's a draft, right? So, for example, enums came out 2 years ago, 2 years, and it wasn't addressed in any way. I don't know why it took so long, and I understand that people are busy and this isn't on the top of their priority list. That's all fine. But I also don't think in this day and age, with tools that automate code style the way they do today, I don't think we need a overarching one God class code style that everyone needs to adhere to. Just create a config file for your projects and use a GitHub or any other kind of CI action to fix the code style on all pull requests you get, to fix the code style for your internal projects, and be done with it. It feels like the Fig, they have this kind of very, very bulky process of votes and of long discussions. And if it takes them 2 years to come up with this, in my opinion, that's a little bit too late. And it's not really relevant anymore, because I already have a PHP CS fixer or Pint or whatever in place that does all of this for me. I don't need to be bothered by it anymore. So I don't want to discredit the Fig for what they have done in the past, because they did amazing work. But it just feels like this isn't as impactful as what previous PSRs used to be. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay, I will try to respond to that. So I think what they're doing with this is they are not trying to dictate you the style. They are just reflecting what actually community came up with. So with enums, for example, how people would use them, or the short closures, how people will use them. They will see it after for a year or so, the real usages, and then just fix what actually community is doing and fix it as a standard. Maybe this is the way to go now. So the community actually doesn't need. The community grew up, PHP community, a lot since the PHP Fig appeared. Back then, the main reason why PHP Fig appeared is all the frameworks, all the tooling. They needed a way of unified auto-loading. This was the primary thing. And then the later things like styling, this all helped, but maybe it was not that major standards. The auto-loading, this is
auto-loading and the initial style guide as well, I think were two very important projects that the Fig delivered on, and they are impactful to this day for the PHP community in a good way.
Right.
But I think there's value in recognizing when a project is done. And at least in my opinion, the Fig has served its purpose. I've said this numerous times in blog posts and on Twitter, so I don't mind sharing it here as well. And it's okay if people disagree with that, but it doesn't really add that much value to me. I hope I'm not too negative here, but to me, it's not really necessary anymore. Let's maybe ask the comments what they ask people in the comments what they think about it, and I'll be happy to see people disagree with me. I'm totally fine with that. I hope you are not too angry with me.
Yeah. So let's move to the PHP Core news. So asymmetric visibility, this is something we discussed last time.
Yeah.
And it was declined. It didn't pass. I don't know. I think you didn't like this proposal, but guys told me, and I think they mentioned it on internals, is that they are working on hooks for properties and accessors RFC. I'm not sure if it's already draft somewhere. So if you didn't know, you can go to this page, RFC page, and you see some of the RFCs that are in draft. Many of them are old and abandoned, but some are quite new. For example, this one is a new one. But also what I know is many these RFC authors, they don't like when people start checking drafts. Because, I mean, it's still a work in progress. Yeah, so this is property hooks draft. We'll discuss it when it's under discussion, but this is something interesting coming.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Let's indeed not go into the asymmetric visibility RFC now. If people want to hear our thoughts about it, we'll also leave a link to our previous PHP Annotated edition in the description, where you can learn about it.
Yep. So read-only amendments, I think one of the most, the biggest problems with the read-only properties was the fact that you cannot clone them. And this proposal, it had two parts. One about extending the classes with read-only properties or read-only classes. And the second one was actually about cloning.
Yeah. Yeah, but we do need to note something here, because this is very good addition when it comes to read-only properties, but people shouldn't mistake what this RFC does with being able to clone read-only classes and override their values from the outside, because this RFC only allows you to override read-only values when in the magic clone method. And that's useful because of deep cloning. If you would, like in this example, if you would clone foo, it would keep a reference to bar and baz to the same datetime objects, which isn't really useful. And there was no way around that, because bar and baz were read-only properties, and you couldn't override them with a clone of those datetime objects of the original foo object. So that's fixed now, which is really great. We can now make true deep cloned objects even when they are read-only. But it still isn't the same as being able to clone foo from the outside and say, hey, I want to override these properties with something user-defined. So let's just make an important distinction here, that people know what this is about and not mistake it for anything else.
Do you know if the modifying out from outside will be proposed?
I hope so. Okay. I can't remember who it was, but someone mentioned that they wanted to look into it, but I haven't seen an RFC pop up for it yet. So we'll see. Maybe for PHP 8.4.
There are a few RFCs, kind of smaller RFCs from George. Basically, George is one of the PHP Foundation developers, and he's very interested in making PHP more consistent. Yeah. So this, in this RFC, he tries to fix the increment and decrement operators, because they don't behave quite nicely, and sometimes they give you like unexpected output. And although this change, it may introduce PC break. It will introduce PC break, but I think with these kind of things, like if you rely on this inconsistent and very, very flaky behavior of PHP, then like you are at risk of having bugs, or you're definitely having bugs somewhere. So if it's just that maybe it could be quite frustrating if your code, like it had bug, but you were relying on this bug for some reason, and then bug got fixed with PHP, like behavior was fixed, but your code started to work differently.
Yeah. I agree. This is a good thing because while I would never write this kind of code like intentionally, I can imagine places where it just happens to occur and me not noticing and actually resulting in unforeseen bugs. So I think it's a good thing. I also wouldn't say this is a breaking change. No, this is a bug fix actually.
Yeah.
Which happens to have some breaking consequences only if people relied on incorrect use of whatever this all is. So, yeah, I think this is a good thing. And it doesn't hurt to make PHP more consistent. And that's always great.
Yeah, there was a bit controversial RFC proposal to pass scope, like allow explicitly pass scope to magic methods, get, set, and set, unset, call static. So kind of like you could do it with bind or bind function, but allow this to explicitly pass in these methods. And so the problem was that you currently can use this debug backtrace function, but the result of it is first, the API is not very nice, like you have to do these things. But also, if you're calling it from a child class, then scope could be incorrect, like it could be detected incorrectly. But I think they proposed just to be able to pass scope explicitly. But as a result, they received some feedback, and I think the decision is to not add this additional parameter to all the magic accessor methods, but instead just have a new function, sort of like debug backtrace, but that just does one thing. It returns you scope and makes it correctly.
So did they come up with this proposal because of the cloning read-only properties? Because I remember Nicholas Grekas tweeting about it, and people asking, "Hey, can you now override read-only properties from the outside?" And he said, "No, that's not possible. That's not the goal of this RFC. But you could use debug backtrace hacking in the magic clone method now to actually achieve that result." So I wonder if this was I haven't read through it, so maybe it's listed here, but if this RFC was inspired by that discussion. And if so, I would say the proper solution is just to have a clone with functionality and not bother with extra magic.
I'm not sure, actually. It's not mentioned anywhere here.
When was it proposed? January 19th. Yeah. I remember these kinds of code snippets in a Twitter thread somewhere, but...
but I'm actually happy it didn't they haven't put it on board, but they will not continue to pursue it because adding another method.
It sounds a little bit too much over-engineered to solve a problem that should be solved in another way.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there is actually, by the time we are recording this RFC is already accepted.
Okay, nice.
So Mate from PHP Foundation and Benas, they suggested to make constants typed in class constants. And the problem is that when you extend a class with constant, you can change the value. And you can change it to anything.
Yeah.
So as in this example, in this interface, you're assuming that test constant is a string, but actually in your class where you implement this interface, you can make it whatever you want. And same with the extending classes. So what they proposed is, if in some class or interface you declared a type for a constant, then in child classes you cannot change it, and you can, when your code that relies on this interface or a parent class, it can be sure that if constant is string, it will be string anywhere.
Yeah.
Which was not the case before. So it's a pretty simple, I would say, maybe from user perspective, addition, but again adds more reliability to PHP code.
Yeah, and I was immediately thinking about like how maybe we can add variance rules in the future, but on second thought, these are constants. They should never change. So it makes sense that they just keep the same type everywhere that they are invariant.
Yeah, and I'm really happy seeing unanimous votings.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this means the change that everyone is happy about. So actually, the next one, we mentioned this extension or a proposal about many functions, and I'm happy to see that part of it is already made to an RFC.
Nice.
So this one is about working with substrings. If this one passes, I'm pretty sure the author will continue and add other functions that he proposed. So it's I think it's really nice. So the next thing, PHP Storm. We have already in the middle or maybe closer to the end of PHP Storm Early Access program. This is when we roll out builds where you can try the upcoming features and provide us feedback. Like you can provide feedback to PHP Storm anytime, but at this moment your feedback will be evaluated much faster, and you can influence the development. So in the upcoming version, I think this one is big. We're going to have the eval integration. So eval is a known tool in PHP world where you can just type some PHP code and run it on any PHP version. So you can do it now from your IDE, just create new Scratch file and choose version and run it without installing any PHP version. So you can quickly see the difference in versions and make your code compatible.
I really like this one. I actually already used it. I was looking into PHP 8.3 and I wanted to try out some things, and it's so nice being able to just use PHP Storm and not having to visit the web interface. But I do want to mention that eval.org has some kind of GitHub sponsors. I don't know, Roman, you knew the details about it. We'll definitely leave a link to it in the description as well, because this is a great project. And if you rely on it and if it's useful to you, you might want to consider supporting it as well.
There are also performance improvements in this release. I think we should not talk about them. You just go and install the EAP or wait for a stable release. And I mean, these performance changes, they're so noticeable that you just...
Let's just say a lot of people are going to be very happy. I think.
Yes, I hope so. Okay, there are some nice tools in this edition. So Crawler. So for Crawler, we have actually a video demo or a pitch from the author. Let's watch it.
Hi Roman, hi Brent. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. And Brent, thanks again for the PHP elephant. Yeah, sorry, but my video setup is maybe not the greatest. I hope it's enough. So the crawler package that I just released in version 1.0 is a library made for web crawling and scraping. There's already a few libraries out there for this kind of task, but I was still missing some things. Let me just mention a few. It's not only focused on HTML documents only, there are also so-called steps to get data from XML, JSON, or even CSV documents. Another thing, as crawlers often need to process a lot of data, it's designed to be as memory efficient as possible by using generators wherever possible. Further, it has some built-in politeness features like sticking to robots.txt rules optionally if you want, throttling based on response times, and reacting to special responses like 429 too many requests or 503 service unavailable. You get helpful log messages out of the box, and one of my favorite features is the cache. You can tell your crawler to cache all loaded responses, and then you can rerun the crawler very fast without having to wait for actual HTTP responses. There's a lot more that doesn't fit in 1 minute, so check it out.
Nice. So it looks like solid. package that does a lot of things, and the author, he thought about many edge cases.
Definitely, and leave if you want to go check it out and leave your thoughts about it in the comments. You're free to do so. And we would also love to hear about some other packages that you want to see mentioned here that we maybe can look into together as well.
So I want to actually mention this JSON mapper package. So the task to map some JSON data to PHP objects is one of the things that you do like all the time in almost every project, because I cannot imagine any project where you don't use external API or you don't read maybe some JSON of some kind, and you can use like the just JSON decode function and basically have associated array, but it doesn't give you any validation, any completion. So you still have to like remember or maybe somehow add PHP docs or whatever to have completion in ID and make it work it with it faster. So I really like these tools that allow you to quickly map JSON objects, JSON strings to real set of PHP objects, and have proper typing, proper completion, and also validation. And there are many of these kind of projects. I think one of the most feature-rich is this one, the Validator.
Yeah,
it's really nice project, but I mean, depending on your preferences, like if you want to a more simple API, maybe this one would be enough. If you want maybe flexible, then Validator is your choice because it allows you to configure many things. There is also this party data transfer object.
That's mine actually, but it's we deprecated it.
Why?
Because it used to be a package before PHP 7.4, which validated data based on type information in doc block annotations. That's how it started, and then it kind of grew to data mapping more and more because we got more and more built-in types. But the package ended up in a kind of state where it was trying to do both things and not really excelling at either. For example, Validator is way better in data mapping than our package here was. So we just decided it's time to just put this data transfer object pattern to package to rest, which was actually the very idea when I started that package. I think it was 5 years ago. I always hoped that it would become obsolete because most functionality would have been added in PHP, which happened. So the only thing that didn't really happen was of course, you can guess, generics, but that's a topic for another day.
So mappers, I really like them, and I hope someday we're gonna have something like that in Core, because I really believe this is a part. This should be a part of web development language out of the box.
Yeah, you're always dealing with data from the outside when you're doing web development. So data mapping is just such a crucial part. And as soon as you start properly typing your data and like using these kinds of patterns, you cannot code without them anymore. It's so powerful.
I want to mention this tool. Maybe we'll go in random order.
Sure.
So this is a validator from Yi framework, but I think you can use it with any framework you like. And what I like about it is that it uses attributes for validation, just like maybe many other frameworks, validating frameworks, but the API is so simple and so easy to use that I really love it. I like this package.
Yeah, that's really clean.
Yeah, it's just simple attributes. You can add them to any class. And just run validation. Very simple. I like it. So there are a bunch of other tools. You can go check the text version of the PHP Annotated and check these tools. We also will not go deeply to Symfony and Laravel.
No, there are a couple of interesting blog posts, but you can go read through the written version of PHP Annotated. We'll also leave a link in the description. There will be a lot of links in the description, Roman. I'll have to go through our recording and make sure I don't miss anything. But let's go to our missed links, because there are some interesting things I wanted to talk about there.
We have mentioned Hakana. It's a project by Matt Brown. So Matt Brown, if you don't know, it's a guy who stands behind Salm. He developed it originally when he worked at Vimeo, but then he switched to Slack. And Slack actually Slack was built originally on PHP, but then they switched to Hack language, a language developed by Facebook. Basically, Hack is, I think, on Slack and Facebook, these are the only two companies, at least that I know, that use. So what he did is he basically took Salm and rebuilt it with Rust, but for Hack. And he goes like into details why they did that and how it works. But he mentions that since it's built with Rust, it's way faster than Salm, and they open sourced it. And so that means that you cannot use it for PHP projects because it's not compatible. But he says that if you want to, you could theoretically make it compatible and run on PHP projects. So let's hope someone picks it up and makes it compatible with PHP. One day, as maybe last time we mentioned PHP parser and a language built with Rust. So maybe by Ryan Chandler. So maybe he can pick it up sometime.
Hey, Ryan, if you want to do something, if you have some spare time.
Yes. Actually, Ryan. So we have this PHP Wishlist blog. And we mentioned Ryan. So first, let's. Just a second. Let's see what Seb talks about. So this is a pipe operator, and basically what it allows you is to run a sequence of methods or functions and pass output of one to input of the other.
Yeah. And that's where the double dollar sign. So the double dollar sign represents the output from the previous function call.
Yep. So so we'll take hello world. We'll in this example it will make all characters a lowercase, then take substring and then do string replace, and here's the result. So it's like chain methods, but with any functions and built-in functions.
Yeah.
So since PHP doesn't have the object interface to built-in functions, this could be quite useful. And I think this was proposed some time ago, but it never made it to PHP. So we're still stuck with these wrappers. To be honest, I think I like wrappers more than this operator, because they add some additional functionality. But then on the other hand, I would love to use this with arrays, for example, because like native arrays without any wrappers. Yeah.
Let me say it like this. I have had quite a lot of use cases for this kind of syntax. And I know there are other ways around it, but I think it would be pretty nice.
Yeah. So what about the Ryan Chandler's?
We were talking about Ryan.
Yeah. So type aliases. I mean, this is obviously a nice thing with all the union types and the disjunctive normal.
Yeah, something like that.
Form.
Yeah, types thingy.
It's just something natural. I think it's available in some other languages. So I don't see why it should not be part of PHP someday. I think this one was discussed during originally when match operator was introduced. It had a part about this multi-line blocks, but for some reason it didn't pass back then. They just removed it from the original RFC, maybe for simplicity. But
in this case, I don't mind using a closure and just returning that if I want more lines and more functionality in my matches. For me, when I write a match, it's usually just one line, because I feel like if it's growing too big, I should look into other ways of modeling my code. So
yeah, generics.
Oh.
Okay, we should not go into this again. I mean,
yeah. I think we all agree at this point, right? Is there anyone who doesn't want generics?
No, I think pretty much everyone agrees on that. It's just that maybe someone think that the priority could be lower. It's not that important, but the main, I think, discussions are around the implementation. So some think that they should be part of the core with the runtime validation of the types, or erased without runtime validation, or not part of the core at all and built with some kind of intermediate language like TypeScript.
Can I make a prediction here, Roman?
Sure.
And I hope people in the comments will come back at me in 10 years, I think. In 10 years, generics will exist either runtime ignored/erased. I would love to have some reflection data available about them still, but not runtime checked, or there will be a superset that has generics and compiles to PHP. I think it's going to be one of these two options, or PHP is going to be dead. So
no, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. So that's my prediction.
Okay, let's see in 10 years.
Yeah, can someone remind me in 10 years? If you're watching this 10 years from now, just tag me in the comments and let me know.
Yeah, so Ryan actually he mentions the ways of implementing generics. So if you're interested in this topic and you want to know how this could work, check it out. Pattern matching.
Pretty cool.
I think actually pattern matching was one of the things that Larry wanted to bring to PHP. So maybe we'll see it in the next few years.
That would be nice. Yeah.
But what is it? Was it pattern matching? Like,
I think it will of course depends on how complex the implementation is, but it's basically determining if a variable matches some kind of pattern. And in Ryan's case here, it's just a type signature. But I don't remember which language it was. I saw a demo once of some kind of Elixir, I think it was Elixir, that has like extensive pattern matching everywhere. And it was pretty cool because it allowed for very concise code, but it also kind of grew complex in many cases. So again, it's something that it can be useful, but it could also be too much, you know.
Yeah, so there is this draft for pattern matching in PHP.
But we're not allowed to look at drafts, right?
Yeah, we're not. And there is also your wish list. Would you like to tell?
Yeah.
A few words?
Why not? I would like to start by saying that I made this wish list a couple of years ago, and I think 3 or 4 things are now actually in PHP. That's not because of me, but that's just, what happened, and I'm very happy with that. Can you scroll to the top? Let's just go through it very quickly. So generics, okay, we covered that. No more runtime type checks. That's going to be in 10 years. You're going to remind me of that, and we don't need to talk about that as well. A superset also. It looks like I talked about everything. Cascading attributes is... I think this should be pretty easy to add, actually. If you get an attribute from a class, you have to manually loop over all its parent implementations if you want to get to know whether a parent class has the attribute. So basically, the first code block can be written as a second. It would be nice if someone adds this. I don't think there's any technical limitation. Scalar objects, but maybe not in the way that I wrote it here. Just, improvements on dealing with strings and arrays and integers. Oh, the pipe operator is also here. And unified function names. I don't mind breaking changes here because I would just run rector to upgrade my code. And it would take 5 minutes to set it up and to run it per project, and that would be it. And it would have unified functions and function signatures everywhere, but it's never going to happen. Maybe in 10 years with a superset, but
I'm wondering if it makes sense just to have function name aliases, like let the old function names stay, but also add.
But the problem there is that people in userland already implemented those functions because they weren't reserved names, and if you make them aliases now, I would be fine with that, but it would still be a breaking change.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I get it.
And then finally, a lot more strict everywhere. But again, that's going to happen when Ryan has made his superset, and it's okay that it's not in PHP itself.
Yeah. By the way, did you know that in some languages classes are indeed final by default? Like, for example, in Kotlin, classes are final by default. Yeah. This was interesting to me. I didn't know that.
Well, and I would say Kotlin, being a slightly younger language than PHP, and being able to, can I say that people thought quite a bit more about its initial design than with PHP? I don't think I'm making any false statements there.
Absolutely.
I really think it makes sense. But and here's the thing. People are used to programming a certain way with PHP, especially in Laravel. I see this all the time, like extending classes here and there because it's so easy and you can just override everything. And for something like final by default to work, you would need to adopt another programming paradigm. You would need more than just making this change for programmers to be happy. And that's actually the biggest challenge with something like final. It requires more than just a change in code. And there I listed at the very bottom, I listed all the things that were added.
Nice.
4 things: read-only properties, named arguments, enums, and improved type variants. Not bad, right?
Yep. We're making progress. I mean,
yes.
PHP. Yeah, so there are a few other links in the text version. So if you want to learn more, go check it. And soon we're going to release the March edition.
So definitely stay tuned, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts. Leave a like, and we will see you next time. Roman, thanks for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.